Imagine for a moment that everything you believed about your life, your love, your partnership has been shaken to the core. You trusted, you loved, you gave yourself fully, and suddenly betrayal enters the room. Your spouse has cheated. That gut-wrenching feeling, that mix of anger, sadness, disbelief, it's real, and it demands action. But here's the truth. What you do next will define not just your relationship, the trajectory of your life. This isn't about revenge. It isn't about despair. It's about reclaiming your power, your clarity, and your future. When you first discover that your spouse has cheated, the natural reaction is a storm of emotion. Rage, hurt, humiliation, confusion, they all crash over you like waves in a hurricane. And in that moment, your brain is screaming for action. You might want to confront, yell, pack a bag, send a message, or worse, make a decision that could have lifelong consequences. But here's the critical lesson. Any decision made in the height of emotional chaos is almost guaranteed to make the situation worse. Your first job is not to react, it's to pause. Pausing doesn't mean ignoring the situation or pretending it didn't happen. Pausing is about giving yourself a moment to step outside of the intensity of your own mind. Emotional grounding is not weakness. It's the most powerful form of strength you can show right now. It's about creating a space where your mind, heart, and body can realign so your next steps are intentional, not impulsive. Think of it like this. If your body is on fire, you don't immediately leap into the flames, you put out the fire. You stabilize, and only then do you move forward. Breathing is your simplest yet most overlooked tool. When betrayal hits, your nervous system goes into overdrive. Heart racing, adrenaline surging, thoughts spinning. You are literally in a fight or flight mode. This is why something as simple as deep, controlled breathing can be transformative. Slow, intentional breaths send a message to your brain. I am safe. I can handle this. I can respond with clarity. Ground yourself physically as well. Stand barefoot on the floor, feel the solid connection beneath you, or place your hands over your heart to feel your own presence. These small but deliberate acts create a container for your mind and emotions. Next, begin to observe your emotions without judgment. Notice the hurt, acknowledge the anger, and let the betrayal register, but don't let it control your actions. Tony Robbins often says that it's not what happens to you that determines your life, it's what you do with what happens to you. Right now, you have an opportunity to make decisions that define your integrity, your strength, and your future happiness. If you act impulsively, you risk burning bridges you may want later, destroying relationships unnecessarily, or creating regret that lasts far longer than the pain of betrayal. One of the biggest mistakes people make is seeking immediate validation or revenge, sending accusatory messages, posting emotional updates, or confronting the other person. Before processing can escalate the situation and trap you in a cycle of chaos. Instead, give yourself the gift of time. Time doesn't heal everything on its own, but it allows you to think clearly. Gives you the chance to ask yourself, what do I really want? What outcome aligns with my values and my long-term well-being? What does it mean for my marriage, for myself, for my life's direction? Grounding yourself emotionally also involves seeking support strategically. Surround yourself with people who can hold space for your feelings without fueling the fire. Trusted friends, mentors, or professional counselors can provide perspective and help you process your emotions constructively. Be very careful about seeking advice from those who may project their own fears, anger, or judgment onto you. You want guidance, not chaos. Ultimately, pausing and grounding yourself is about reclaiming your power. Betrayal can make you feel small, powerless, and reactive, but when you take a step back, breathe, and stabilize, you create a position of strength. From that place, every decision you make is deliberate, every word you speak is intentional, and every step forward is aligned with the life you want to create. This isn't just about surviving betrayal, it's about mastering yourself no matter the circumstances. The strength you cultivate in this moment will define not just your relationship, but your capacity to thrive in every area of life. So the first action after discovering infidelity is not confrontation, not revenge, not escape. It's the power of pause, the discipline of grounding, and the clarity of emotional control. Because only when you are centered, calm, and intentional can you make the decisions that will lead to healing, empowerment, and transformation. Not when you've been betrayed, the mind is a battlefield of stories, assumptions, and worst-case scenarios. You feel it in every fiber of your being, your heart racing, your stomach twisting, your mind replaying every interaction, every moment, every suspicious glance. The danger here is not the cheating itself, it's what your mind does with it. Left unchecked, your thoughts can run wild, creating scenarios that may be far from reality yet they dictate your emotional state and your action. That's why the second critical step is to seek the truth and get absolute clarity before you decide what comes next. CLA. Reality is power. Chaos is weakness. When you're swimming in the storm of emotions, you will make mistakes if you act on assumptions, rumors, or partial truths. You need facts, the unshakable, undeniable facts. Who, when, why, and how. These aren't questions meant to punish or humiliate. They are questions meant to anchor you in reality. Only when you are anchored in reality can you respond rather than react. Tony Robbins often emphasizes that clarity in decision-making is the bridge between despair and empowerment. Without it, you are adrift. Start with yourself first. Your own perception may be clouded by hurt, jealousy, or fear. Before confronting anyone else, ask yourself, what do I actually know for certain? What am I assuming? What am I letting my imagination fill in? Write it down. Seeing it on paper forces your mind to differentiate between evidence and emotion, between reality and story. It's a powerful act that immediately reduces the chaos inside your head. Then, approach your spouse with calm and measured intention. This is not about interrogation or accusation. It's about understanding. Your tone, your questions, and your demeanor matter tremendously. If you approach with anger or judgment, the likelihood of honest answers diminishes. But if you approach with curiosity, clarity, and focus on facts, you open the door to the truth. Listen more than you speak. Let them explain. Watch for inconsistencies, but don't let your mind fill in gaps with assumptions yet. Clear it. Why also means understanding the context without excuses. This doesn't mean rationalizing or accepting the betrayal. It means knowing what happened, why it happened, and whether there is a pattern or a one-time lapse. Was this emotional, physical, opportunistic? Understanding the nature of the infidelity helps you make decisions that are grounded in reality rather than fueled by your fears. Sometimes clarity comes from external verification. This is delicate territory. Checking phones, messages, or social media can be necessary, but it must be approached carefully. You want to collect facts, not trap yourself in an endless cycle of suspicion. Over-scrutiny can erode trust further or make you feel consumed by the betrayal. Balance is critical. Seek truth without losing yourself in obsession. Another crucial piece of clarity is understanding your own priorities and boundaries. What do you value most in life and relationships? What behaviors are deal breakers? Clarity isn't just about knowing what happened, it's about knowing what you will allow, what you won't allow, and what you need to feel safe and respected moving forward. Write down your non-negotiables. This will act as your internal compass when emotions are high. Finally, clarity empowers action. Once you know the facts, you can make decisions with intention instead of reaction. Do you choose to rebuild? And if so, how will accountability and transparency work? Do you choose to walk away? And if so, how will you protect your peace, dignity, and future? When you operate from truth, you remove the fog of uncertainty that keeps you trapped in emotional paralysis. Decisions become aligned with your values, your goals, and your long-term happiness, not just the immediate emotional surge. Remember, chaos is seductive. Betrayal makes your mind want to act impulsively, to punish, to scream, to make rash choices, but clarity is liberating. Facts, understanding, and truth give you the power to respond with mastery. You can turn this pain into strategy, this shock into insight, and this heartbreak into a foundation for a stronger, more conscious life. Seek clarity first, and everything else becomes actionable. Once you have grounded yourself and sought clarity, the next step is perhaps the most critical, making a conscious decision about the future of your relationship. This is where most people get stuck. Betrayal leaves you torn between love and anger, hope and despair, loyalty and self-preservation. And if you allow indecision to dominate, you'll remain trapped in a cycle of pain, suspicion, and endless what-ifs. Tony Robbins always says that indecision is often more damaging than a wrong decision because it robs you of your personal power. You must decide consciously, will you rebuild or will you release? The first step in conscious decision-making is self-honesty. This is not about what you want to feel, but about what you can live with in reality. Rebuilding requires immense trust, forgiveness, and commitment from both partners. It's not about pretending the betrayal didn't happen or rushing past it. It's about acknowledging the pain, understanding the reasons behind it, and agreeing to transparent communication moving forward. Ask yourself honestly, is your spouse willing to meet you here? Are they ready to do the work? Or is this just a temporary apology to ease the moment? Without their full participation, rebuilding becomes a fragile house built on sand. Rebuilding is not just about the other person, it's about you. Can you forgive without suppressing your anger? Can you set boundaries that protect your emotional well-being while remaining open to connection? Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means releasing the hold that the betrayal has over your life. If you can approach this with intention, clarity, and mutual commitment, rebuilding can strengthen your relationship beyond what it was before. The key is that it must be conscious, not reactive. Don't rebuild out of fear of being alone, out of guilt, or out of societal pressure. Rebuild because it aligns with your values, your vision of love, and your own empowerment. On the other hand, releasing is equally valid and often necessary. Let's be clear, choosing to leave is not failure. Choosing to release is a declaration of self-respect, self-worth, and emotional integrity. It is saying, I will not allow betrayal to define my life. I will not sacrifice my dignity, peace, or future for a relationship. T cannot meet me where I need to be. Deciding to release requires courage because it often means confronting loss, uncertainty, and fear. But it also creates freedom of space to heal, grow, and create a life that truly honors who you are. The decision between rebuilding and releasing must be made consciously, not in the heat of emotion. That means taking time to reflect, seeking clarity, and sometimes even journaling your thoughts and feelings. Visualize both scenarios, staying and rebuilding, leaving and releasing. What does each path demand of you? What are the long-term consequences? Which aligns with your core values? Your emotions will try to cloud your judgment, love, fear, and anger will all compete, but your conscious choice will anchor you in power and direction. A powerful tool here is to reframe the situation. Instead of asking, why did this happen? Ask, what does this teach me about myself, my partner, and my life? When you approach the decision with curiosity rather than blame, with empowerment, rather than victimhood, you access a higher level of clarity. You are no longer reacting to betrayal. You are responding to a challenge with conscious mastery. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Some relationships can heal stronger than ever. Others must end for the sake of personal growth and integrity. What matters is that the choice is deliberate. Rebuilding without clarity or release without conscious intention leads to regret. Conscious decision-making. G ensures that whatever path you take, it is aligned with your truth, your values, and your ultimate purpose. In this moment of crisis, your decision whether to rebuild or release is a declaration of self-mastery. It signals to yourself that you will not be ruled by pain, that you are the architect of your life, and that you will choose with intention, courage, and clarity. Betrayal does not define you. Your response does. Choosing consciously transforms heartbreak and empowerment, chaos into strategy, and loss into a foundation for a stronger, more authentic life. One of the most devastating effects of infidelity is how it shakes your sense of self. Betrayal makes you question your value, your attractiveness, your worthiness of love and respect. You start hearing that inner voice whispering, maybe I wasn't enough, maybe I should have done more. That voice is a liar. Your worth is not defined by someone else's choices. And this is why reclaiming your self-worth and establishing unshakable boundaries is absolutely critical, whether you choose to rebuild the relationship or release it. Tony Robbins teaches that true empowerment begins with knowing your value, standing in it, and refusing to allow anyone or anything to diminish it. The first step in reclaiming your self-worth is self-recognition. Look at yourself in the mirror and acknowledge who you are, not who you were, not who your partner thinks you should be, but who you truly are. You are resilient. You are deserving. You have talents, love, and strengths that no betrayal can erase. Write down your qualities, your accomplishments, your values, and your strengths. This is more than a list, it's a declaration. It's your armor against shame, self-doubt, and emotional erosion. Next, you must understand that boundaries are not punishments, they are declarations of respect for yourself. Boundaries define what you will and will not accept in your life. After betrayal, boundaries become essential. They protect you from further emotional damage, manipulation, and toxicity. They are a statement to the world and to yourself. I am worthy of honesty, respect, and love. I will not compromise my integrity for convenience or fear. Setting boundaries may mean asking for space, refusing certain conversations, demanding transparency, or limiting access to your emotional energy. The strength of these boundaries communicates power far louder than words ever could. Reclaiming self-worth also requires emotional accountability. You cannot rely solely on your spouse's actions, apologies, or promises to validate your value. Your value is inherent. It is non-negotiable. No one else gets to define it. This is where many people stumble. They wait for the other person to make amends and restore their sense of worth. But empowerment comes from recognizing that you were whole before the betrayal, and you will remain whole after. Your self-respect does not depend on reconciliation. It depends on your ability to stand in your truth, Part of reclaiming self-worth involves confronting and releasing toxic narratives. Stop blaming yourself, stop overanalyzing your actions, stop believing that someone else's betrayal is a reflection of your inadequacy. Betrayal is a choice made by another person. It is not your failure. Once you internalize this, your boundaries become stronger, your confidence becomes unshakable, and your emotional energy is no longer held hostage by someone else's decisions. Rebuilding boundaries also has practical application. If you choose to stay in the relationship, boundaries ensure that trust can be rebuilt intentionally. If you choose to leave, boundaries protect your mental and emotional space from lingering entanglement. Either way, these boundaries are non-negotiable. They are a framework for your life, a declaration that your energy, dignity, and emotional stability are sacred. And another critical element is surrounding yourself with supportive allies. People who reflect your worth back to you, who encourage your growth, and who remind you of your inherent value are invaluable. Avoid those who enable self-doubt, judgment, or destructive behaviors. Your environment should reinforce your self-respect and the boundaries you are creating. Remember, you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. Choose wisely. Finally, reclaiming self-worth is about action. It's not just internal affirmations. It's living in a way that reflects your value. Engage in acting. Videos that build confidence, nurture your passions, and remind you of your strength. Speak up for yourself. Say no to what doesn't serve you. Stand tall even when it's uncomfortable. This is how you demonstrate to yourself and the world that your worth is absolute and your boundaries are inviolable. The ultimate lesson here is that betrayal may have tested you, but it cannot define you. By reclaiming your self-worth and establishing firm, loving boundaries, you regain control over your life, your emotions, and your choices. Whether you stay or leave, these practices ensure that you emerge stronger, more empowered, and aligned with your true value. You will no longer be a victim of circumstance. You become the architect of your life, the master of your emotion world, and the creator of a future that honors your worth. That betrayal is painful. There's no sugarcoating it. It cuts deep, shakes your trust, and makes you question the foundation of your life. But here's the truth that most people miss. Pain is a signal, not a sentence. Pain is not the end of your story. It's the doorway to transformation. Tony Robbins teaches that your past experiences, no matter how devastating, can be converted into power. The moment you decide to transform your pain into growth, you step out of victimhood and into mastery. The first step is acceptance. Accept that the betrayal happened. Accept that it hurts. Accept that life is not always fair or predictable. Resistance only prolongs suffering. When you fight reality, you give your energy to the problem, not the solution. But when you acknowledge reality, you free up the energy to focus on what you can control: your mindset, your choices, and your actions. Acceptance is not surrender, it's clarity. It's the foundation from which transformation begins. Next, ask the most powerful question you can in this moment. What can I learn from this? Every painful experience contains a lesson if you are willing to look for it. What does this betrayal reveal about your needs, boundaries, and expectations? What patterns in your life contributed to where you are? What strengths are emerging in you that you never recognized before? By shifting your focus from blame to curiosity, you move from the paralysis of pain to the momentum of growth. You begin to see that even this moment of heartbreak has value, even if its gift is hidden behind the grief. Personal evolution also requires reframing the narrative. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of someone else's choices, see yourself as a survivor and a strategist. Instead of believing that betrayal has weakened you, recognize that it has revealed your resilience. This shift in perspective is not just mental, it is transformational. It changes how you perceive yourself, your relationships, and your capacity to thrive. Tony Robbins often says that the meaning we assign to events determines our emotional experience more than the events themselves. By giving this betrayal a meaning of growth and empowerment, you turn pain into fuel. Growth also demands action. Reflection without action is simply rumination. What steps can you take to evolve from this experience? Perhaps it's investing in yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, or intellectually. Perhaps it's rebuilding relationships with deeper authenticity and boundaries. Perhaps it's walking away from toxic dynamics and creating space for a life aligned with your values. Whatever it is, growth requires that you actively choose behaviors that reflect strength, wisdom, and intentionality. Pain without action is suffering. Pain with action is transformation. Another critical aspect of growth is forgiveness, not necessarily for the other person, but for yourself. Forgive yourself for any perceived mistakes, for being vulnerable, and for having trusted. Forgive the situation for its harsh lessons. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it liberates you from its emotional grip. It allows you to move forward with clarity and peace rather than carrying bitterness and resentment that weigh down every decision. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is one of the most potent tools for reclaiming your power. Finally, use this experience as a catalyst to redefine your life. Betrayal forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, but it also offers an opportunity to rebuild your identity on your terms. What do you want your relationships, your boundaries, and your life to look like from this point forward? How will you honor yourself, your needs, and your vision of fulfillment? By transforming your pain into intentional growth, you do not just recover, you evolve into a stronger, wiser, more self-aware version of yourself. Remember, growth is not linear. There will be moments of doubt, waves of anger, and flashes of sadness. Each time you consciously choose empowerment over despair, clarity over confusion, and action over stagnation, you reinforce your evolution. Betrayal becomes a turning point, not a dead end. It becomes a source of power, insight, and transformation that shapes the rest of your life. The ultimate lesson is this: pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You can allow betrayal to diminish you, or you can allow it to define your next level. By transforming pain into growth, you reclaim your life, your future, and your identity. You take a chapter of heartbreak and turn it into a story of mastery, courage, and unstoppable personal evolution. That is the true power that lies in responding consciously to betrayal.